South Africa has 72 ports of entry comprising 53 land, 10 aviation and 9 marine ports. So 2 weeks ago, President Cyril Ramaphosa had launched the Border Management Authority, touted as a renewed effort to ensure that South African borders are less porous and more efficient in the facilitation of trade as well as legitimate movement of goods and people. The Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, joins me now live. A very good morning to you, sir, indeed. Thank you very much for your time this morning. So South Africa basically saw the President launch this Border Management Authority. But I really want to ask, what really is this and what does it mean for the movement of people and goods at our 72 ports of entry?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Griselda, and thanks for the invite. Maybe the first thing to indicate is to say that the country has been using a multi-agency approach in as far as border management is concerned, and that is part of the model that was fairly inherited during the transition in 1994. We had a number of government departments that sent people into the ports of entry. The Department of Home Affairs, for instance, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental. All of those, they send people into the ports to do various, or to implement various laws as per their departmental mandates. So the introduction of the Border Management Authority actually means that we are then moving away from the use of a multi-agency approach in as far as border management is concerned, and start actually using an integrated border management platform wherein a single authority is then created as a law enforcement authority, which then takes over the implementation of those various laws on behalf of those departments across the ports of entry. So to that extent, it means that the departments are no longer to be present at the port. We integrated the officials that they used to work for those departments into the Border Management Authority, and now they work under a single command and control.
And I understand these are 4 departments, is it, that have been integrated?
Yes, indeed, Griselda. For now, we talk about the Department of Home Affairs, wherein we have integrated the immigration functions, the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. We have integrated what we call agricultural biosecurity functions. Together with the Department of Health, we have integrated what we call port health functions. And the last one is the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. We have integrated what we call environmental biosecurity functions that we do at the ports of entry. But we also do the function called access control across the ports of entries, which for now it is being implemented by members of the South African Police Services, after which, when we have full capacity, we are also to take over that part of the function.
I want to talk about controls. You would obviously know that South Africa has a problem of, an influx of, illegal migrants, some who present themselves as asylum seekers, that's just an example, but have left their countries due to economic hardship. What controls are there that the authority will have to make sure that those who are in the country or who are coming into South Africa are who they say they are?
Yeah, indeed, Griselda, you are very right. Most of the people who actually entered the country through the ports of entries, who are economic migrants, they effectively came to the port and indicated that they are asylum seekers. So in terms of the model that has been used all the time, we had to then give that person a Section 23 of the Immigration Act, a Section 23 permit of the Immigration Act, and the person will then be allowed to enter the Republic so that they can be able to present themselves within 5 days at any of the refugee reception centers and be able to apply for asylum there. But one thing that we have observed is that most of the people who entered the country under that context were not necessarily qualifying as asylum seekers. Hence, when they entered the country, they did not present themselves to the refugee reception centers. So what we are currently doing, we haven't implemented it, but that is where we are going. We want to bring at the port of entry what we call refugee status determination officers, so that when the person arrives at the port and say that they want to apply for asylum into the Republic, we should be able to process them at the port of entry and be able to make a determination if indeed, where they come from is qualifying them to apply for such, so that if not, we should be able to return them on the spot.
And I want to talk about your powers. What powers does the authority have? All good and well. You have the authority itself. Some would even perceive, that this might be a duplicate of the work that the South African Police Service is doing. But you're saying no. There's some integration as well, where you get to work, I guess, with the South African Police Service as well, hand in hand, if needs be, at these various ports.
Yeah, you see, Griselda, on this point, I want to be very much clear in terms of the interface, particularly among the three, as we have just been added,
yes.
Armed services of the Republic.
Yes.
Firstly, if you were to look at the responsibilities of the Border Management Authority, you will realize that they are located in Section 5 of the Border Management Authority Act. So subsection 8 tells us we need to facilitate and manage the legitimate movement of persons across our ports of entry as well as the border law enforcement area. Subsection B tells us we do the same, but in terms of trade facilitation. And the third one, the law actually instructs us to coordinate and cooperate with the SANDF, which is the Defense Force, the police services, and also customs. Now, in terms of understanding what we need to be doing at the port versus what the police are supposed to be doing. So in the port of entry, for instance, when a person arrives at the gate to enter into a port of entry, those particular people must produce a legitimate travel documents, even before they enter the port and ultimately present themselves before the immigration officer. So that is what we call access control. We are controlling access into the port of entry. That is the function of the Border Management Authority and the border guards in particular. But as you will know, the responsibility of the police is not necessarily to sit inside the port per se, but what they have to do is to do crime prevention, is to do crime combating, as clearly defined in the SABC Act as well as in the Constitution itself. So what it means is, for instance, if there is a crime scene inside a port of entry, then the police officers takes over that responsibility.
All right, thanks for that clarity. One of the launch promises is the full digitization, of our ports or at our ports. How long is this process likely to take? I think that will go a long way in, assisting in knowing digitally by a click of a button who's come in, who has gone out, what have they come in with. Where is that process? Have we started it yet? Are we looking to start it?
Yeah, indeed, Griselda, that is one area that is very much complicated and also very much expensive. So we have already, penned down the actual model in terms of our digitization process. What that basically means is that each and every port is to have what we call the port targeting center. Yes. That is the center through which all of the IT platforms are supposed to be located at. All of the various cameras that we have deployed at the ports of entry are to feed into the port targeting center. We need to realize what we call a single view in terms of the interface of multiple systems that are existing in the country, particularly around the management of people movement. So from each port, then we have a regional targeting center where we have 4 of those, because the BMA is to operate in the 4 regions. And the 4 regional targeting centers will lead into the national targeting center. So that part of the work, we have done work in terms of mapping out how it needs to look like. But in terms of the implementation of the various systems, for now, I can tell you about the rollout of what we call the biometric movement control system across our ports, so that people's fingerprints has to be taken, their iris has to be taken as they enter and exit the Republic, instead of just looking at the passport without biometrics.
You're looking to recruit some of these that will be at these different ports. Where is the process in terms of recruitment? Is that already done? Would we see some of these members belonging to the Border Management Authority at these ports already?
Yeah, no, indeed. By the way, Christella, we have started operating legally as a Schedule 3A public entity on the 1st of April 2023. And at that point of operation, we had already integrated a staff complement of around 2,100.
All right.
So out of that staff complement, we had around 1,800 which are fairly called experts. Those are immigration experts, agricultural biosecurity experts, environmental biosecurity experts, as well as port health experts. But we then had around 221 conventional border guards, which are fairly your law enforcement team of the entire staff complement. So if you go to OR Tambo today, as we talk, you will then realize that there is a single port commander there of the Border Management Authority, accountable for all these 5 areas of work, and they are all operating under a single commander, single uniform, single standard operating procedure. So we've already started operating. But in terms of further recruitment, I can also confirm that we currently have 400 additional border guards that are finalizing their training interventions that are going to join us, particularly as we go into the festive period. But we also have 50 coastal guards that we have already recruited, are now also finalizing their onboarding. They should be on board before we enter into the festive season. This is the team that is going to take care of the coastline.